Today we are chatting about freedom. And yeah, I've been thinking a little bit about it today, and I try not to think about it in advance, because otherwise I get to memorize stuff and then it doesn't come fresh. So I like it when I look at it fresh. And if I look at freedom, for me, it's like when there's nothing in the way. Like there's nothing in the way of what I want to be, do, all of that stuff. So that's what kind of showed up for me. And I'm very grateful that I live most of my life free. I live most of my life in freedom. And yeah, that's what showed up for me.
When you're talking about freedom like that, and you're thinking about freedom, when you say there's nothing in the way, are you thinking about limits or obstacles or
I think I'm thinking about everything, but the biggest thing that the biggest obstacle or limit that I've seen, like, of course we have the physical limits, like I'm not free to go to California right now. I really wish I could go, but I'm not. There's that physical limit. The biggest limit for me, I guess, was the limit I put on myself, like the things that I would create that would stop me. So I don't know. I want to buy this mic, and, for the longest time, it was like, no, I can't do that. There was like this whole thinking about what I could and I could not do because of what I would have put in the way. So for me, that was the biggest one. And you know what? Now I'm not grateful no more. Now I'm like, wait, I got so much, so much in the way now. Oh, geez. Like, what do you see, Aubrey?
about freedom, or about what you just said?
No, about freedom. What do you see?
Well, I suppose when you talk about, freedom is such an enormous concept, and it's also really abstract, that the way I think about it, I have a lot of thinking around freedom, but it seems very simple. Like, whether we're talking about body freedom, sort of physical freedom, then there's mental freedom, and then there's spiritual freedom. And it's all about limits, right? And they're all, we call it limits. And then I immediately like, no, why don't you call it edges or boundaries or like perceived obstacles? Because there's really, I think Okay, so I talk a lot about creativity with people, right? It just ends up being a hot topic, you know, and I'm always bringing up this idea that artists are artists, or anyone who does anything creative, but you know, any artist or anyone who's done anything artistic has the experience of uh, when we have constraints, you know, on what we're assigned to do, like a task. Let's just say, like I just gave someone this example an hour ago. It's like, so an artist gets hired to do a commission, and but then there's all these limits on it. We can only pay you this much, and you have to do it in this amount of time, and there has to be only these materials used, and you have to only do it this size, and but we can't represent. We don't want you painting this, and you have to depict this at the same time. You know, all of a sudden there's all these limits, and it's a not total freedom. But it's within those limits or constraints. It's like the narrower the physical form gets, like you have to do it within this, the bigger the freedom, like the more creativity comes out. It's like the more constrained the assignment, the more free we're sort of forced to be with it. It's a weird, I find like this weird paradox. Like the more free we are, the more sort of we try to put limits on ourselves. I think limits or obstacles are this sort of man-made thing in order to help us realize how much freedom we have just by contrast. It's like as if we need the contrast to realize or to feel and act with as much freedom as we actually have access to. There's something that human beings need, something about human beings needing to come up against something to realize they can go around it, go over it, go under it. And we don't get it until we're confronted with something. Well, I think freedom is very much in that same vein. You know, until you lose a certain amount of freedom, you don't realize what your other forms of freedom are, or just how much freedom you actually have.
Interesting.
So that's what just came to mind about it. But it's generally how I think about you know, freedom is like this made up concept too. Freedom from, freedom within. Like there's not just, you know, freedom implies freedom from something or within something or outside something. It's in relationship to something else.
Let's see what Summer has to say. Oh, sorry. Where'd you go? Something's going on here. Okay, go. Unmute.
Hello. I was thinking about what you were just saying, Aubrey, and it reminded me of how, as humans, we are spiritual beings inside of this human form. And so we are the definition of that contrast. And in regards to artists, the value of shadow against light is what creates the definition of the art itself. And so innately, we are born of and from that duality of the spiritual side of us, that whole expansive universal presence and consciousness, while simultaneously holding on to this really finite human form of presence in this time and space that's really, really brief. And so we have that push-pull of I am infinite and I am here and now, which is really, really minute in presence. And so I was loving what you were saying about how, as humans, when we come up to the definition of anything, it seems as if it's always in contrast to something rather than just the experience in and of itself. It's as if it only defines itself by something else, in reference to something else.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really well put. I mean, isn't that the nature of consciousness? I mean, we have to have some sort of, we're designed in this world of, to interact in this world of form, to have an experience. It's the consciousness that arises in that experience where we realize, oh, we're so much more than this. I mean, it can. I think
Yeah.
that's the goal. It's to, you know, it's like the yin yang symbol. It's a beautiful symbol. It really says so much um, about how we see, how we're conscious.
In my experience of freedom and the times in which I felt unfree, I realized that the majority of the time, my experiences of when I was unfree or trapped or confined were all self-imposed. They were all made up of my own thinking or belief systems that turned out to be illusions. And so my chase for freedom was really just a matter of giving up things that I thought were true that turned out weren't.
So in that respect, we're always free. We always have freedom.
I think so. Until we think we don't. And we have lots of justifications for it.
Mm.
And that doesn't change the fact that we actually always are. We just might not see it at the time.
Yeah.
I think that's why the levels of, you know, body, mind, and spirit are so valuable. The spirit is always free.
Yeah.
Anyone who's been sidelined with a physical illness or a disability, or, you know, I don't know, incarcerated or anything, knows that there's so much more than physical freedom.
Yeah.
It's the, again, it's like the constraints, like we get, yeah, where freedom is just this, it's the reality of what our true nature really is free.
It's more like a universal truth than
Yeah.
anything we can make up.
Yeah, I think very much so. Yeah, we've come here to express something, you know, in the world, to be in the world. You know, we're sort of forced to work in form by just nature of being here. So, you know, I think, you know, the dualities are helpful. They're helpful to have experience it. To have an experience, it's help of light, it's helpful to have dark. Oh, okay, so you have night and day, light switches. So we can experience the difference between the two different states. You know, to have anger, we have forgiveness, we have got a lot of stuff, then you have no stuff. I don't know, we have lots to say, not much to say. You know, it goes sort of around. I always think a lot of dualities because I'm an astrologer. So, you know, the whole system is basically dualities. And it's, you know, it's helpful. We can have an experience of looking inside, looking outside. What am I like? What do you like? How do I feel now? How do I feel then? My feelings, my thinking. And it's cool to think that it's all just a made-up experience at the same time. As useful as our thoughts and feelings are for having the experience, it's also really cool to think, God, it's all just made up. It's all just coming from the same thought machine, which is just coming from one free place.
What's really cool about that is then we're also free to make up anything we want about it. And so we're free to have a terrible time. We're free to have frustration, and we're free to have all kinds of joy and excitement and creativity.
Yeah.
That there's no boundaries on those freedoms about what we do with what we are doing here at this time and place.
Yeah, it's all part of it. I was telling someone an hour ago, I was like, it's like bubbles. It's like we just have these thoughts, like one after another, like, you know, like it's like blowing bubbles, you know, they just keep coming, and there's no rhyme or reason, and we're just a bottomless, you know, a bottomless sort of source of bubble solution. A lot of it's so vast, you know, when you start to think about how free we actually are. And I think that's the part of us starts to crave limits, to feel a little less free, because that's a lot of unknown.
Yeah.
But it's there if we want it.
Yeah. It's fascinating that unknown is so uncomfortable for us when we are of it.
When we're of it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like it a lot more and more, as you know. I don't mind the unknown so much. Not as much as I used to. But that was just because I had a misunderstanding that the unknown was supposed to be uncomfortable.
Mm.
And then I was like, oh, the unknown is just a constant. Oh, it's okay. Oh, not only is it okay and normal, but it's just the way things are. And I've got this idea that, I'm actually allowed to enjoy the unknown, the mystery, the discovery. The unknown is a pretty, it's not just that it's okay and it's fun, but it's just the way it is. It's kind of like saying, yeah, oxygen is, I'm okay with oxygen. Yeah.
Yeah. And gravity.
Yeah, it's the way it is. It would be silly to try to not be okay with these things that just are.
I love what you said about the how it was just a misunderstanding. That it's almost as if culturally we're taught that the unknown is, you know, mysterious and uncertain, and we should fear it. And that being a misunderstanding, that we can actually have fun, we can dance, and that releasing of the misunderstanding, or the coming to the clarity about the misunderstanding, is like the experience of freedom itself.
You know when you said that, for me, what kind of showed up was, see, I like new stuff, you know. I like when I have this new thought, or I have, yeah, I don't like recycling the same thoughts over and over again. Yet, of course, I do it all the time, but you know, like, I like to find new stuff, and I like to think fresh. And yet, you know, I spent, you know, 50 years of my life looking at the known, you know, seeing somebody walking here. I spent, you know, like all of my life studying, you know, getting to know stuff, you know, gathering knowledge. And then once I got that knowledge, you know, I would always go to it. And then, of course, if I was in the unknown, I'd be like, oh, wait a second, I got to know now. I don't know this. Let me know. And I'd always look for it, go into that. And I think at some point in my life, hey, it's okay. It's okay.
There's a medical term for that. It's called being a control freak.
What? What are you talking about? I am not a control freak.
I'm sorry, expert syndrome. That's what it's called.
Okay, I got definitely that one. So yeah, now it's like it's really cool. The shift that shows up is more like, wait, let me look. Let me look again. What do I see now? You know? You know, I was always in the unknown and I was fine until, you know, of course, I got to find out. And then I had the illusion that I was safe because I knew. Right?
And what do you find? Do you find that you feel, as you've let go of that sense of having to know in order to feel comfortable, do you find that you actually have access to more knowing, or you feel more comfortable or more at ease?
Well, I don't know if it's wisdom that I'm trusting, but I trust myself to just know what to do whenever. You know, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I'm going for a ride in the country alone in my car, you know. I don't go into crazy thinking, well, what happens if, you know, if I get a flat tire or if my car breaks down, what am I going to do? You know, I trust that should that happen, I'll figure it out. You know, I'll walk to the nearest farm.
Right.
I'll call AAA. I'll try to fix it. I don't know. I'll stop somebody on the road. I'll be like, hey, stop. I don't know what I would do, but I trust that I'm going to do something. You know, when I was younger, I used to work for a company where I'd travel across the states, and then, you know, I was in my 20s, and I was a single woman, and I would travel. I would go from, you know, I went everywhere in the States from Canada. I covered the United States. And I remember my boss, you know, sending me into Phoenix and telling me to rent a car and then drive to Tucson. And I mean, so much anxiety back then. I had so much anxiety. And then I did it. And then I really had the realization. I was like, wow.
So easy.
That was no biggie. It was like, oh, here's the place where I need to rent the car. Okay, thank you. Where's the map? Oh, there's a map. Thank you. And where's the highway? There. Okay. And I'm going there. Okay. You know, but in my mind, it was just like, there was so much of it, you know, and I'm not sure if it's experience that tells me that I'm going to be okay. You know, like I kind of like, is it experience or is it wisdom that's telling me I'm going to be okay? But there are things that I'm doing that I have no idea, right? Like I don't have a knowledge base on that because I have many knowledge bases, right? There are things that I do that I have no knowledge base, and I still do it, and I'm just like, okay, well, we'll figure it out.
To me, it sounds like trust and faith. Maybe, you know, a combination of trust and faith.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the beauty of experience, that we build wisdom off of, and that's one thing that strengthens that connection, so that we know that part of us, that responsive, resourceful part of us, is always there. Is the way we know it's there is by contacting it, using it, meeting it, realizing, oh, that's me. Wait, I don't have to, wait, that is just me. That's then trust and faith evolves from that. But it's not trust and faith in anything other than ourselves, our deeper, our deeper nature, that is us. Oh yeah, I can do this. Oh yeah, it's there all the time. I don't know, it's funny, you're making, I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but I just, when you were, what it came up in my head as you were saying, I don't know if this is something I've learned or my wisdom, because what I was thinking was like, we're born to be ourselves. Newborn, few seconds old, we came here to be ourselves. And then we have this life where everyone's teaching us how to be ourselves. But they're teaching us, and we're learning, and they're like, no, do this. It's like we get this sense that we have to be taught to be ourselves, so that we have to learn how to be ourselves. We're born as ourselves. It's intact, it's there, and we don't go anywhere. We never go anywhere, always in there. And then we spend a lifetime being taught or learning from others how to be ourselves, when all we have to do is be ourselves. It's really insane what human beings do in order to try to be more human. What is that?
You know what it reminds, like when you say that, and you say, we were born, and then people teach us, how to be ourselves, when they really have no idea who we are. Like you can't teach me to be myself. I am myself. You're not me. But what showed up when you said that was, I guess we get confused. Like we think, like in learning that, we think that it's wrong, like that we should do something else, like when you do something as a kid, and then somebody says, no, do it this way, this is how you do it. I think the misunderstanding there is, oh, I can't do it this way, I have to do it that way, this way is wrong, this way is right. I think that there's like, this shows up, but really what I'm like showing up is like being human. It's like learning to navigate through all of the different thinking without putting any meaning to it. Like, okay, so when I'm talking with mom, she likes me to do it this way. Me, I'm going to do it that way, but I'm navigating through mom's thinking right now, and she wants me to do it this way. Wait till I turn 18, I'm going to do it that way. No, I'm just kidding. Like, am I making any sense? It's kind of like, instead of putting a meaning and saying, okay, well, from now on, I can't do that anymore, I have to do that. I'm kind of like taking away a piece of me and turning it into whatever society or parenthood or, the appropriate thing to do is.
Yeah, but I don't think you can take away from you. It's just you forget. it's like, well, it just gets covered up with your thinking, or it gets for everybody. This happens to a certain extent, is we just get mentally separated, but we never go anywhere. It's like forgetting you have a nose on your face.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't go anywhere. We don't go anywhere. We're always ourselves. It's just we either see it or we don't. We get blinders on.
Mm.
And it's so simple. It's so simple. It's like, oh, I'm in there. I'm in here. I'm in here. I'm in here. And there's lots of other stuff in here too, and it's called thought.
Right.
And some of those thoughts are coming from my true nature, and some of my thoughts are coming from, I don't know, the minutia of just having an experience of. I can look at some matches and not feel like the matches have anything to do with me. I could get worried about the matches. I could get anxious about the matches, but those aren't going to give me the feeling of like, oh no, those aren't. When I have a thought that's coming from me, my true nature, which is it's almost impersonal. It's like, oh yeah, like that gives me the feeling of like, it's a totally different experience than thinking about anything else. So I feel, and that, I don't know, I think the concept of freedom is, again, it's like this man-made sort of thought of like, I'm free or not free, freedom or no freedom. Like, there is just freedom. And then there are all these other concepts about what it means, freedom of expression, freedom in your family, freedom, literal freedom, physical freedom. But there's the freedom that matters is made up too. I mean, there's just, I don't know. It's freedom is a man-made concept.
Yeah, so the freedom is always there. Like what I'm
The experience of freedom. It's the experience. There's real freedom. That's what I'm saying, is that real freedom is always there, because we're nothing but, part of source, God, divine intelligence, and that's limitless.
not being free is man-made, is what we made up.
Yeah, but the concept of freedom is man-made.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because it's already an innate truth. Like the three principles are already like, they're an innate truth that we're on a man-made intellectual level trying to understand, but it's already a truth before even the intellect gets involved. And the same is true for freedom. It's already a truth, and then we think about it.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We have to have an experience, it feels better to have an experience of freedom than not freedom. So I'm going to choose having an experience of freedom. And then it gets stepped down into more and more form. You can experience lack of mental freedom or lots of mental freedom, depending on which thoughts I'm paying attention to. And then I can experience, physical freedom or lack of physical freedom, depending on, that's a more tangible, like can move or can't move situation. And again, it's the experience of it. It's not that like prison bars are made up, but your experience of freedom, that's just like a more literal constraint on experiencing actual freedom. I feel like this conversation is getting very meta. I'm starting to feel very unfree, or layers of, you know, it's it just seems to be a made up concept to me.
It's interesting when you were talking about when you're born, you're you, and that's like the most natural thing you can be. And then we're taught to be different ways. And I can see such innocence in that to do this thing called being a human, that we learn things for survival, like how to put on clothes and how to cook. And then we take it to the next step, which is when we start to look at our individual natures. Like, I'm an introvert, but I grew up in an extroverted family. So I was taught how to do life in an extroverted manner that always felt uncomfortable because I was introverted. And so when I came to that place of freedom, I could recognize how it felt okay for me to be a wallflower. And then that was easier for me and more fulfilling for me. And then I felt freer to be me. And I can see such innocence in their attempt to teach me how to do life as a human from what they could see.
Yeah.
When it wasn't that I was wrong or bad. It's just that I came from a different perspective or a different nature or a different intention of how to be present in the same space as they were. It's just an interesting thing to see how innocent it was.
Totally innocent.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's one of the most healing thoughts I think human beings can have, is that we're all doing the best with what we have at the moment. It is very innocent.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as mistaking what we think as reality, as real.
Yeah. I think it's also a measure of making room for the uniqueness, where how I make a quesadilla might look different than how you make a quesadilla, but the end result is still tortillas and cheese, melted and pretty yummy and gooey. But I don't know that there's always that liberty that's available to be really creative and expansive in the process of making a quesadilla.
Well, yeah, because, well, that brings up the whole idea for me of, you know, people, I think human beings have an impulse to be together, right, on things, you know.
Yeah.
They created this thing called a nation. Well, that's an idea, right? We have relationships, like we have tribes and communities and neighborhoods. Like, people want to be on the same page. You know,
Yeah. They want to connect and belong.
Connect and belong and exchange love. And so
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, this idea of togetherness got mistakenly translated into sameness.
Yeah.
And that, you know, in order to be unified, people kind of screwed it up and said, well, unity is uniformity, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
like, no, unity is everyone being all different, being whoever they are, together.
Yeah.
In one of, you know, God's feelings, when there's really only one, which is love. That's unity. But, you know, humans have done a really nice job of translating that into uniformity, which is the form of control, right? It's like, oh, no, I need you to make a quesadilla like this because I feel more comfortable and sure as a quesadilla teacher. that I have taught you the right way to make a quesadilla, right? There's like, and that's how everything is done, right?
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
is, I need you to write your letters a certain way and be able to color inside the lines and have good manners and say please and thank you on cue. And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And some of it makes everything work better. And sometimes it's a lot of times it just makes us forget who we really are, or not makes,
Yeah.
helps us forget who we really are.
Yeah. I love the idea of freedom being a man-made thing, that the only way we can lose it and to come back to it is also man-made. Like the contrast of the experience of it is all made up.
Yeah,
and like
though,
you were saying,
yeah.
we never lose it to start with. We always already are it.
I think so. And that, I don't think that part is made up. I think the part of experiencing our true freedom is God-given, source-given, higher intelligence, universal mind, all, whatever the, you know, that's the divine experience of, oh, I'm free.
Yeah.
And yes, it quickly gets translated into a thought, but everything does, and because here we are.
Because we're human.
Because we're human. And it's fun to be human, right? It's fun to like have all these experiences and thoughts, and it'd be a lot more fun if we could pick the more helpful, fun thoughts a little more often, right? Instead of the anxious, worried, controlling, you know, fearful, sane enough.
They say with intention and attention, you can. You can pick whatever thought you want.
Can you?
It's just, well,
I don't know if you can. I like the idea that I'm not sure we can pick, honestly. I haven't experienced that, but I think through getting to know my thinking and seeing it more and more, that I can, just by noticing and understanding how I work more and more, I like the idea when people say I can take it less seriously and not mistake it for the real me.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of not taking it seriously. It makes it much more like the movie that it is.
Yeah. When I remember, I don't identify with it. And that lets me pick which thoughts to entertain. And then when I forget, my mind picks its own thoughts and I think it's true. And then I remember again. And I realize that I can pick any thought I want. It's like, you know, swiping through until I find the one that feels good, and then I follow that one. But there's a sense of space between me and the thinking that recognizes that I am not my thinking, that I'm more than my thinking, and I have thinking. It's a tool. Intellect is a tool, but I am not my intellect. And that, for me, that took me a long time to develop enough experience of to recognize it as being reliable.
Yeah, it took me a while to get, wait, I'm not my thinking. I can't, it's not even, you see, that's the thing that's interesting in these conversations, is that we're trying to put words onto things that we're feeling, that we're seeing, and it's like, it's difficult to explain to somebody else until you've actually looked for yourself inside and went, oh, you know? But it, I'm separate from my thought. I'm seeing the thought. I'm hearing the thought. I'm developing the thought. This is the part I do a lot. I know everybody else does too, but you know, like there's these thoughts where I kind of go, no, 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 that can't be. No, 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 no. And then I let me go fix it, you know? And then I don't think I identify with it. I don't think I am that thought, but I have to fix it. You know, like I'm having it, so I have to fix it because I don't want it, or I don't want it to come true. And being able to just go, wait, it's just, it, like, I don't like saying it's just a thought, but there's nothing that I have to do with it. I can just go, oh, I saw that run through my mind. And then if I do nothing with it, it's gonna stop. It's gonna not stop, it's gonna dissipate. It's gonna just go away. And when I first heard, don't do anything, you know, then I, you know, I'd gotten it as the literal thing. Okay, I'm gonna not do nothing. Yet I was still like, is it gone? Is it still there? Is it gone? Is it still there? Now that was doing something. It wasn't, it was just that I don't put my attention on it.
To me, that still sounds like effortful. I mean, when I think of trying to not put attention, I think you have to almost try to not put attention on it. Well, I have a different experience of thinking now, where I experience thinking as just something I do, right? It's a function. It's as natural as breathing. Absolutely just as natural as heart beating, or lungs breathing, or blood pumping, because that's how I'm designed. I'm designed to think. And that's amazing. Like I love that I think. Like I'm so, like, that's really cool. I mean, you think about, like, God, really? Like, we're bored with these things that just come up with stuff all day long. Like, that's really cool. Like, I can embrace that. And I always just I think it's a really cool function. Now, what I think, I don't have to take so seriously, all of it, because I always get the image of blowing bubbles. It's like, because it's just this bottomless jar of bubble solution. And if I start to take, that bubble is the perfect bubble, I don't like that bubble, I'm not going to blow any more of those. I have no control over it. They're all kind of cool. And like, if I want to follow one of them, you know, or if I want to appreciate one of the bubbles that, you know, that my thinking blows, then, ooh, that's a cool thought bubble.
Well, when you said, you know, like, when I say I don't put my attention on it, is I don't do what you just said. You know, I don't want that bubble. That bubble's like, I've stopped doing that and just go, oh, there's a bubble again. So I don't, it's not an effort for me anyways. It was in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just meant about the, I think a lot of times people try to not think like certain thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Like insecure thinking. I'm not going to think insecure thoughts. In fact, I'm only going to think secure thoughts because I want more confidence. And our true nature is confident and has that oomph that we're looking for. So, you know, that's what my noticing looks like when I'm like, you know, I can see an insecure thought and not follow it. And be like, oh, yeah, I'm not going. Like, it's the I don't have to think that. Someone, I don't know whether it was in one of our master classes was, you know, they used the phrase, yeah, I don't have to think that. So it's an acknowledgement of this function. It was a great relief, actually, when I learned that I didn't have to use more positive thinking.
Yes.
I didn't have to affirm my way into, you know, feeling better. It's a great relief because that is a lot of work.
Yeah. Like for me, like it really,
It doesn't work.
yeah, well, it's very tiring. It's like, okay, so wait, I am feeling insecure. So I'm going to have secure thoughts. So I'm having secure thoughts. I'm having secure thoughts because, you know, there's insecurity here. Okay, wait, am I still insecure? Yeah, okay. Let me have secure thoughts. Let me have secure thoughts.
Remember Stuart Smalley? I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. Remember him?
No, who is that?
Saturday Night Live.
Oh, no, I don't watch it.
You gotta look up, Google some YouTube videos of Stuart Smalley.
Okay.
He's a genius character from, what was his name? He was the senator. He's brilliant. Not Phil Hartman. You know, he's the Minnesota governor. Minnesota senator who failed because he got some allegation. He's amazing. He's brilliant. Anyway, Stuart Smalley, the affirmations era. I think it was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Everyone was doing affirmations, and it doesn't work. Well, actually, I won't say that. It kind of does work for some people.
Yeah.
But
it worked for me. I'm gonna say, I can't say it doesn't work. It worked for me, but I was exhausted. I remember, you know, at one point I was like, you know what? I just want to say, fuck it. I mean, let me just not talk to anybody for a little while here so I don't have to generate and maintain the positive thinking, you know? It's kind of like, oh man, I would just hide. You know? It's tiring.
yeah, because underneath it all is really the sneaking sense that you're fighting off insecure thinking. Or so I think it feels like it's working. I think there's a lot of thinking. It creates a lot of thinking, but it's not really about, be a lot easier and faster and more simple to just allow yourself to emerge from that place of total freedom to be yourself. See how I did that? Brought freedom back into it.
You are the man, the woman. Well, thank you very much. we will be chatting again together about healing in the first week of June. We're having the healing week that we're going to talk about. So I'm looking forward to it. And until then, well, we're going to see each other in one of our classes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
We have other chats tomorrow and Friday. I have 2 other chats. I don't remember exactly what the titles are because I got so many I don't remember anymore. But thank you for coming to play with us. And
Thank you, Jasmine. It was fun.